Get ready for truth and transparency from an ocean of liberal tears. Welcome to the Blue Shark Show with your host, Mike Lang.
This is a perfect example of the federal government trickling down into our local governments, and this being the Texas Association of School Boards, meaning our local school boards. On September 29th, NSBA, which is the National School Board Association, penned a letter to the Honorable Joseph R. Biden, right? President Biden.
Honorable.
Yeah, they mentioned that, and they have to do that. But it's in reference to the federal assistance to stop threats and acts of violence against public school children, public school board members, and other public school district officials and educators. And folks, this is all about CRT, Marxism, and even COVID with masks and vaccines.
One positive thing that came out of COVID and the lockdowns and the distance learning was that parents actually got involved and they saw what was happening, what their children were being taught, some of the agenda that was being pushed, and it spurred a lot of parents to action across the nation. So they've started exercising their First Amendment rights, showing up to these school board meetings and questioning their authority to be able to do this, their policy to do masking and various other things, and expressing their, disdain for some of the stuff that they've done to their children and some of the political Marxist ideology agendas that they're pushing in their schools and how it's wrong and how it needs to stop. And now they're wanting to label these parents that are actually becoming involved and active in their children's education as terrorists.
Right, and you've got the first line here, America's public schools and its education leaders are under immediate threat.
Yeah, they're under immediate threat of being held accountable to what they've been doing while serving on these school boards. Courtney, like you said, it's incredible to see all these parents. It's like every few days there's another clip of another school board where a parent gets up there and takes a stand in defense of their and their children's rights and what they think is proper and decent for schools to be teaching. And like it or not, CRT is in our schools. It's even been here in Granbury with Brain Pop. I know a lot of people don't like to hear it, but the facts don't care about your feelings. And again, these parents doing this is what needs to happen. We are at a crucial time in our country, and it's great to see so much involvement in our schools because these kids are our future.
The NSBA continues in their letter, and please go find the letter. It's on Google, NSBA in their letter to President Biden. And it goes on and says, on our behalf, state associations and more than 90,000 school board members who govern our 14,000 local public school districts, educating more than 50 million school children. In Texas, we have TASB, which is the Texas Association of School Board, which is like the NSBA, but for Texas. And through TASB, there's 36 spots where TASB nominates 36 individuals, and it goes by congressional districts. So we have Texas representatives that are part of NSBA, and they're deciding these things from NSBA down to the state and down to your local level. So parents, here's the fact. We already have, if there's a situation at a school board and there's a legitimate threat, there's violence, we have police on the scene. You could have city police, you could have county police. It's handled.
Right.
But what this NSBA and probably TASB is wanting to do, because they're part of it, and we haven't heard anything that negates this here in Texas, what they want to do is they want to make this almost like a federal crime. You're a domestic terrorist now for speaking up and maybe saying it's a threat. Well, what's the definition of a threat? And can that threat be handled by your local police department?
Right. So if a parent comes up there because they don't like something that's being taught in their school, does this automatically get labeled as a threat because they're not going along to get along? When parents get active and involved, this is always a good thing, in my opinion, not a bad thing. So yes, you're not always going to do everything that the public likes, the parents may not like, but you have to be open to that criticism. That's part of being held accountable in your elected position. So whenever someone doesn't agree, now they're just going to be labeled a threat and they're going to be able to shut them out.
And what this shows me is that another association that has a lot of stroke within the government, right now it's the federal government, is trying to weaponize the federal government against private citizens that are only exercising their First Amendment right. You know, a lot of people say that positions like school board don't have anything to do with the Constitution or individual rights or whatever. In Joe Biden's America, they absolutely do. We need school board trustees that are willing to take a stand and be held accountable by the very people that they are elected. That should not be a big ask. But unfortunately, as history has shown, especially here in GISD, that is. We don't have that right now, and we need some change on that school board.
And please, like I said, go to Google, look up this letter, and further on the second page, it says, additionally, the NSBA, which is the association, requests that such review examine appropriate enforceable actions against these crimes and acts of violence under the Gun-Free School Zones Act, the Patriot Act, in regards to domestic terrorism. So when we're talking about domestic terrorism, the Patriot Act, Matthew Shepard, James Byrd Jr., hate crimes, the violent infrastructure with federally protected rights statute, the conspiracy against rights statute, executive orders to enforce all applicable federal laws. Parents who fund government schools, right, it's taxpayer money, and them getting up to speak at their own school board, and they don't like some of the things that are coming out. And we are not for violence at all. No violence whatsoever. That can be handled. The police can get there. They can arrest the people. If there's violence, if there's punches thrown, yes, things need to be taken care of. But when you start talking about executive orders, the Patriot Act, and things like that for people coming up to say, what's a threat, what isn't a threat, you said something mean about a school board member, or you said something that we didn't like in our school, who's paying for that school? So in response to the NSBA letter to the president, the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, pens a letter and a memorandum that brings this together and ties it together, saying, look, the FBI is going to look into this. The FBI is going to assist local governments. Let's get together with the county and the city and do all this. So now you have the Attorney General bowing down to the NSBA and bowing down to all the people that are talking about the citizens expressing their First Amendment right coming into school boards. Now you have part of the Biden administration, Attorney General, getting your federal government to come in and take over your city and county.
In Joe Biden's America, we arm the Taliban and then weaponize our intelligence community against our own citizens.
Texas needs to step up to the plate and say, no, stop, not here, not in our state. And if it comes this far to Granbury, the school board, the administrators here in Granbury, they need to step up. They need to go down to Austin and they say, no, not here in Granbury.
And you know, political dissent is now treated as domestic terrorism. Is that what it's going to be like? Is that what we're moving to from this Attorney General, Merrick Garland? Is this what he's talking about coming into the local areas?
We have a situation now to where we are creeping closer and closer to an authoritarian state. We now have the Attorney General saying he's going to weaponize the federal government and our intelligence community against people expressing themselves at school board meetings. We are in no way condoning the very few incidents of violence that have happened at a couple different spots. That is never acceptable. But what this is aimed at and what they're trying to do is stop you from going to Granbury ISD or wherever you're watching this from and voicing your opinion. They want to silence you because they want to control you, and I hope you all understand that.
Nate and Courtney, you spoke about the local people here in the ISDs and the trustees protecting the citizens' right, First Amendment right, you know, come up and talk about their own schools, their own public government-run schools. I haven't heard anything, not one thing, from Governor Abbott to this point about what's going on with the NSBA and the Attorney General. But guess who we've heard from? We've heard from the governor, Ron DeSantis, of Florida. And right off the bat, he puts out a tweet that says, Attorney General Garland is weaponizing the DOJ by using the FBI to pursue concerned parents and silence them through intimidation. And Florida will defend the free speech rights of its citizens and will not allow federal agents to squelch dissident. So right there, you've got a true governor standing up and saying, we're not going to put up with this in Florida. And that's what we need here. We need Governor Abbott to step up and say the exact same thing that the governor of Florida is saying. Once again, this governor of Florida is out front, and he's really after these issues. And I wish Governor Abbott will be too. But maybe we can hear something from him. I know his people that are running against him, the other candidates, are sure against this. So hopefully Abbott step up, because we're going to need the protection here from some of the local school boards, and we need the help to say, look, the citizens have a right of free speech, not violence, but free speech, and it should not be taken away.
Again, parents, it's your right to attend these meetings, your right to address your school board members. Those are your children that are in those schools. Those are your tax dollars that pay for those schools, and you have every right to be there. We need to make sure that we stay vigilant and we keep our eyes on this and make sure that this doesn't trickle down into Texas and that this doesn't trickle down into Granbury.
And just looking at the way things have progressed over the last few years with the rise of cultural Marxism in our society, I've heard it said several times that misgendering somebody is equivalent to violence, that expressing your religious beliefs is equivalent to violence. My question is the FBI, under President Biden and the progressive communists that are running this country right now, are they going to say that if you question masks or you oppose vaccine mandates for students, staff, and visitors, are they going to say that that is now violence? Are they going to use that as justification? I hope you all see what's happening here, and I hope that we can get through this peacefully.
This is a big reason why Blue Shark even started. We're here for local. And a lot of times, of course, almost every time, federal legislation gets involved, then we have state legislation. If we can't block it on a state level with Governor Abbott, and he seems to be slow to react on what's going on, then we're going to have to do it on a local level. And our trustees and all the trustees at all the independent school districts need to be aware of this. They need to be watching what's going on at a federal government level. I have not heard anything from Granbury ISD or the other local ISDs in Hood County. But this is something that we need to get in front of. We need to look at. We need to come out and say, no, this will not be happening in Granbury or any other ISD here locally in Hood County. Shark Show out.